Oh, my lipstick is everywhere. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paola. Thanks for stopping by. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I just finished recording a conversation with 3 of my friends. We're all in the nonprofit social service or social work arena. Today, the conversation is in regards to working in this arena, serving people while having to deal with the current climate in regards to police brutality and the injustices that occurs against Black and brown people. I actually filmed this video about 2 weeks ago with Natalie and Margaret, and for some reason the Zoom meeting, I didn't download the audio portion. I just don't know what I did, and I have no audio. Natalie and Margaret have been kind enough to sit back down with me and film, and today we have Sabrina joining us. I'm super excited for this conversation. I hope you guys enjoy. It's recording now. We're gonna put a little prayer over this video. Thank you, Lord, for letting all these wonderful women join me today. I know that they all have beautiful experiences and they're so eloquent when they speak about their experience, and I hope that we're able to do this video together and it impacts the people that it needs to impact, so that the change can be created to be presented to the world and received the way it should be received. Thank you, Lord. In your name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Yes, Sabrina.
Gotta put a little ring on there.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paola, and today I have 3 wonderful guests. I think Margaret looks familiar because she's been in a video before, but I have my friend Margaret, my friend Sabrina, and my friend Natalie. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves a little bit. But this video, we're gonna be discussing about the environment that we have right now in America in regards to race and the social unrest of what we're dealing with right now. Right now, most of us are in the social work arena. Both Margaret and Natalie have their MSW, and Sabrina's in her MSW program, I believe her 2nd year. And I hopefully will be joining the squad eventually with my MSW, because you have to have a bachelor's or a master's in social work to call yourself a social worker. So I'm going to go ahead and let the ladies introduce themselves. Maybe we could do it in alphabetical order so we don't throw people under the bus. I don't want to push people. So Margaret?
If we do it in alphabetical order, I still have to go first.
Wait, is it? You're doing it by what?
I was doing it by first names, and then as I said it, I realized Margaret was going first.
All right. Well, my name is Margaret. Paula said I'm a social worker, but I actually do macro social work. I work for a legal nonprofit doing fundraising and development, and our mission is to basically help everyone get access to healthcare, but most especially low-income people. Been doing that for almost 2 years now, and yeah.
So hi, I'm Natalie. I work as a child therapist in Connecticut. I've been there since February of this year. So prior to that, I was doing care management for the elderly. And then before that, I was program director for individuals with disabilities. So I've had a wide range of populations that I've worked with over the last, when did I graduate college? Let me not tell my age, but I think 6 years, yeah.
Wow, time's going fast.
It sure does.
It really does.
Almost 4 years, Margaret.
Wait,
yeah.
Old.
I graduated 2014. Yeah, 6 years.
The baby of the group.
Maybe you might be the baby.
I graduated high school in 2014, so.
I think for once I might be the oldest. No, I graduated my undergrad 2014, and then my master's was 2017.
I feel like now you're like 27. I don't understand that. My brain's not working.
You gave your age away. Woo.
I am 27. No, you're right. I'm 27.
But I'm 25, and I graduated high school in 2013. That's why I'm like, where did you skip some grades?
My birthday is late in the year. My birthday's in December.
So okay, all in the same little age group. We're all in our mid-20s. Wait, are you 24 yet, Sabrina? I'm telling everybody's age.
Yes.
Okay, so we're all in our mid-20s, so we're in that little.
Hey, giving everybody's age out. Woo! You 25. Thank you. So now we all know what our age is.
Listen, do you know what Victoria's Secret did? It has nothing to do with this. They sent me an email coupon saying happy half birthday, pretty much reminding me I'm 6 months away from being 26. And I'm like, why would you do this?
My internet is a little unstable, so bear with me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
My name is Sabrina. I'll be heading into my final year of my program. I currently am a violence prevention educator in a violence prevention center at Southern Connecticut State University. In September, I'll be working in the psychiatric department. I'm not going to say the hospital because I don't want people following me around. But just to keep that private, I'm going into the psych department. So that should be interesting. Completely different population.
You said in a hospital?
So, yes.
Oh, that'll be interesting. That's my next goal. Is to get
I didn't want that placement, but when God calls
you will get
somewhere,
a lot.
You go on. Yeah.
You will get a lot.
So I look forward to the exposure and the learning experience for sure. And I'm glad to be here with you all. So
we're gonna get into it. So like I was saying, we have a lot of civil unrest, and it pretty much started mostly in the riots, or the protests began back in May, end of May, early June, due to George Floyd's death. But there have been series of strings of murders throughout this beginning of 2020. I mean, Ahmaud Arbery was in February, Breonna Taylor was in March. So it just seems like everything. And then there was a killing in Atlanta also. And it just seems like there is no, it just seems like very back to back, but that's always how it's always been. It's just now it's being publicized. So I just wanted to talk about that, because with all this civil unrest, all these videos that are super violent, people of the opposing end of the debate, which there really should not be a debate about the murders of Black people, but people saying very vile and awful things, it's kind of hard to kind of compartmentalize different things and having to go to work. So I wanted to talk to all of you and how are you dealing with being a Black person in a predominantly white workspace and then having to come back home, turn on the news, or vice versa, turn off the news and then go into that workspace?
That's a packed question. I would say that in my personal experience dealing with the uproar and all that has been going on, I personally had to excuse my French, but I had to clock my ass out. I was just so tired. I was so tired. I was so angry. I found myself not being able to sleep. I was very irritable. And for me personally, I work in a predominantly white space. And so to deal with colleagues that truly have no idea and not having or feeling like I didn't really have it on, it was stressful. And so I had to really check in with myself. And it took me a while to really emotionally regulate, because like I said, I was very upset with everything going on. But I come from a spiritual background, and so that's what I've really been leaning on. And I've learned to really put language to my feelings and eventually have uncomfortable conversations with colleagues who just don't get it. And so I've been able to find my voice a lot better amidst everything going on. I wouldn't say my feet are completely planted as of yet, but it's a lot better than where I started.
I know you were saying that you weren't sleeping. I think it does take such a physical toll, and I don't think people understand. You might not know this person. We don't know George Floyd. We don't know his family, but the experience of being Black it's universal, right? And obviously it's a little bit difficult for people who are darker skinned, who are visibly Black, and, they can't opt out of their Blackness. And I think that's something to acknowledge. But the fact that you weren't able to sleep, I can imagine once you can't sleep, your hair starts falling out, you can't eat, you lose weight. It really does mess up your whole, system.
You know what? I am an empath by nature. I just can't help myself. And so when all this was going on, I immediately thought about my loved one. Ahmaud Arbery is my brother. I have a Black brother who goes out, into the world with all his guys, and to see everything going on, I'm like, wow. So you're telling me my Black brother could, go to the corner store or go out of town with his buddies, going down New York or whatever, and something terrible could happen to him? Putting that into perspective is truly what killed my inside. Because I only have one brother. and, only one father. And so thinking about them, it immediately just shut me down. And I had to unpack all of that. But I immediately think about, my loved ones with all this that's going on, for sure.
I know, Margaret, you have a brother. And Natalie, do you have a brother?
I have two brothers.
You have two brothers. I mean, that must be a horrible weight to carry. Not just fearing for your own safety, but for your loved ones, and know that you can't protect them the way that you want to because the world's out for them. I don't want to be white people are the devil, but sometimes I'm just it just seems like there's a lot of hatred, and there's no other word to explain it, that manifests in physical violence against Black men and Black women. Natalie, how are you coping with all of this right now?
I would say at the beginning, I was Sabrina. I was going to work and having to, in the midst of all this, because not only just that, but COVID, and we're being killed at a disproportionate rate versus everyone else, is just a lot to deal with. So I found myself mentally checked out, but at work, and having to get myself together for my session with the kids that I meet with. But in the in-between time or the before, I feel I was just idling around because I was just this is, every day I was I should probably take a personal day today, but I didn't, because I know we were supposed to have a meeting with the staff that I work with, and we didn't even end up having that meeting. And I felt as social workers and as an agency, because I work for a healthcare agency, it was very important to have that conversation, and we didn't have it. So I was very disappointed by that. But then again, I was well, maybe it was for the best, only because I'm not sure how that meeting was going to go. So did I really want to partake in that? Probably not really fully. I didn't really feel I wanted to have the conversation, even though I was disappointed that we didn't have it. But I also didn't really want to have it or feel I had to be the spokesperson, especially because I'm already with the spokesperson with the kids who I deal with, right? So for them, if they didn't know or if their parents talked to them about it already, I had that conversation with them again just to make sure they understood what was going on, try to put it in the most basic terms so that they understand. And it's just, I was definitely checked out. A lot of stress eating during that time, crying most days.
And I think your job failed you. We had talked about that previously, how they were going to set up a meeting to talk about what was going on, even just on a one-to-one, individual basis. I feel they should have checked up on you. But the fact that they set up and then they kind of let it fall to the wayside, that's a form of their white privilege in a sense, where it's I can choose when I can have this conversation with you. And it's something regarding your well-being, but if I don't want to have it and I want to forget about it and it's not that pertinent to me, then we're not having it.
And it's funny because when I had mentioned that to my supervisor, she was saying that, what's she saying? She was saying that, well, she understands and that she has her, one of her parents is Black, but it's not the same because she physically, she has an accent. She physically looks white. So it's not the same, if that makes sense. Not even light-skinned Black. She physically looks either white or Spanish or some other not Black in any way. So I can understand, you may think you understand, but it's definitely not the same.
I mean, you can't, I feel there's sometimes false equivalencies where it's I think you can understand and empathize with certain people, but to the idea that how other people feel because of your own experiences is ass backwards.
It's not I'm trying to minimize her experience. It's just that when you physically look Black, is different than if your parent is Black and your mother is of some other descent, but you don't even look like your father at all. Mm-hmm. It's just different. Your experience, your life experiences are different.
Margaret, how about you? How has your employer has responded to this situation, and how have they made you feel?
I mean, I'm pretty fortunate. I think my job does a pretty good job of responding. Well, it's been a work in progress. Now, presently, we do a very good job of responding to things like this. That my job issued a statement condemning the violence and calling for, better treatment of Black people. And a lot of my white staff reached out to me personally, and they were just we hope you're okay and things like that, which I didn't really respond to anyone, but I guess I appreciated that. And they also had an open space setting where people could kind of talk about what's been going on and things like that. And like a lot of people were able to kind of talk about their emotions and things like that. It was like right after George Floyd died and like right after the protests started. And that was like a very emotional time for me personally. I spent a lot of time crying, very little time working, very lot of time crying, because it just was a lot. And I feel like I get what Sabrina said when she said like it feels it's a lot, because I also am an empath, so I feel like I internalize a lot of I'll call it noise. So a lot of emotions and like things outside I tend to take in really heavily. So it just was a lot of things. And like for other reasons, I told you before, I'm not on like social media or anything. So I try not to indulge in a lot of noise, but it just was, you couldn't turn on the TV, you couldn't open your phone without seeing something about what was going on. So I really appreciated my job for being on top of it and kind of like accommodating people. Like I told my boss flat out, and my direct boss is the CEO. I told her, I was like, I'm not working right now. I'm online. Like I'll respond to an email, I'll respond to a Skype message, but like I'm not thinking about work. I'm thinking about my life. I'm thinking about my brother's life. I'm thinking about my uncle's life. I'm thinking about my dad's life. I'm thinking about people's lives, because I've been saying this for a while, but like COVID has stopped everything except for racism in America. And people are still dying. Like I am genuinely scared to call 911. Like even if I need the help, I could end up dead. Like myself or anyone that looks like me could end up dead in the situation. And is it really worth it? I don't know. It's a pretty scary reality.
The whole calling 911 was something I don't think we talked about around the first time around. But you and I both watched The Grapevine. There was an episode about Black women and Black men in their relationships. And one of the things that they pointed out, one of the women, I forgot what her name is, I'll have to find out. They were talking about how sometimes if in the relationship there might be domestic violence or just an issue, that she's a Black woman, so she has to have these two dualities. So she's like, I'm not calling the cops because I don't want them to cause harm to you. And that's just the truth, that you can't call the police. The police in a white neighborhood is not the same as the police in a Black neighborhood, right? When police officers are in suburbs, you know, they show off when there's a little bit of unrest, but the way that they go about it is completely different. I remember I was working in a law firm and I was having a conversation. It was 2016, Trump was running for president, and they were all white women who were Trump supporters, and they were very hell-bent that there was no such thing as white privilege. And I remember talking to a woman, I said, I remember you telling me your son had a suspended license and he was driving and got pulled over by a police officer, and he told the police officer that he was like maybe 10 minutes away from home, and he let him go home. And I'm like, that in itself, it's like, first of all, your son committed a crime. We're not talking about like, oh, his tail light was out. We're talking about he had his license suspended because he was a speeder. Like the law said you should not be driving. He said, I'm going to continue to do this, get pulled over, and will not face any ramification. And this police officer is going to let me go home because I appear to be wholesome or a good person. And I'm like, that is what we're talking about. The police does not mean the same for everybody. And like, my dad's a police officer, and I don't want people to be like, well, you know, I know somebody who's a cop and they're not all bad. No, they're not all bad, but we're talking about an institution. And the fact is, if you are law enforcement and you're in place to take care of us, do your job. That's all we're asking you to do. Do your job. Stop trying to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. Just do your job. There is nowhere in our Bill of Rights where it says, well, a police officer can make a decision if you're worthy to live or not. And if we're talking about, oh, George Floyd was on drugs, there's plenty of white people on heroin and all these types of drugs. And when they get pulled over by police, they never get shot because they know that they need the help. And the fact that they had to include that in there, it's like, I have to defend it. And it's like, it's not right. Like it's just not right. It makes me angry that they make the victim the perpetrator of his own crime, and it's like ridiculous.
Because even like policing is a job, but because we're dealing with humans, we understand that people make mistakes, but these mistakes go unchecked. So it breeds like this type of environment where you can get away with anything for so many years that they're just like, well, why now? Why we need to change anything now?
I remember the first time around you had told us about the woman up in New York, how she was a police officer. Maybe you can explain the situation because you're the one who read it, Natalie.
It was a woman police officer. She had intervened when her partner was choking another assailant, so the perpetrator of a crime, and she stepped in to get him off of the person he was choking, and she ended up getting fired for that, losing her pension because she stepped in.
And maybe it's the education that they need to get. Maybe they shouldn't be in the police academy for only like 6 to 8 months. Maybe they need to be checked up every year. You know, a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, a social worker. If you are licensed, you need to
maintain our license, continue education. They don't do any of that.
Yeah.
And
yeah, there will be evaluations, mental health evaluations twice a year, every year, or more if you're in like
they do
a
evaluation.
violent.
They protect their own.
Yeah, which is just like, honestly, it's actually a little bit disturbing how like the police gang together to protect their own. Yes. Like that is so odd. The way that they protected the police officer's house, the person who killed, was it George Floyd, I think? It looked like a mob of cops. Just
sure did.
I was like, for what? Like, you guys don't even protect anybody. Like, who else gets this level of protection? Like, when women are scared for their lives because their partner is abusing them, I don't protect them like that. Who do you protect like this except for each other? Mm. We don't pay you to protect each other. Our tax money is not supposed to cover you covering each other. That's actually not what my tax money is supposed to cover.
That's what it's doing.
Defund the police. Defund the police.
And they're paying for cop cars that are Teslas, and I'm like, why? For what? For what intents and purposes?
The NYPD's operating budget is like $6 million.
So we were talking about defunding the police, and Natalie was mentioning Margaret was mentioning how the NYPD has a $6 million budget, and then Natalie brought up the fact that our school systems are struggling, and I think there's a way to mix those two worlds. Like, I don't understand why police officers can't be involved in education. Like, why can't they be involved in programs? Here in Waterbury, they have the Police Activity League, which is called PAL, which is an initiative from our mayor, who was a former police officer. So it's an after-school program where all the kids, young boys, can go to play basketball, to learn all these different trades and things like that. And I'm like,
girls too, because I was in softball.
Yeah. Oh, okay, girls too. I'm sorry. So I don't understand why money can't go into that. What do you think not a perfect, but what would law enforcement look like for you so you would feel safe, for you to feel safe and your family to be safe in the world that we live in now? What would it look like?
Well, I think they definitely need to work hand in hand with the communities that they so, quote unquote, serve. I live in an inner city, and I went to inner city public schools. And my mom, actually, she also went to the same schools. Well, I went to the same schools that my mom went to, and my father went to. But my brother was sent out to private school outside of the town because there was an understanding of, all right, this isn't the best school system, which is unfortunate. But I didn't know any like police officers or anything unless students were getting escorted out of the building to get sent to detention center or to jail. And I'm like, why is that like the only thing that we're seeing? I'm not saying that, you got to be shooting hoops, every single day with the kids, but like really understanding and learning about the community, and really like building relationships with the community that you serve. I think that will make a huge difference. I know that they had like this program. I don't know if you guys heard of the DARE program. It was like this like drug and alcohol program that they had back in time. Terrible program. It was terrible. I think they were trying to come up with some sort of initiative to encourage, young people to not, do drugs and everything. But it was like, first of all, it was poorly funded. They didn't have proper educators. And it was just like, they always had like these, like, I guess, like parties or whatever. It was terrible. And I don't like talking about like, programs and stuff and putting people out there like that. I'm not there yet, but that I will say, and I'll leave it there. But but for the most part, was that it was bad. It was so bad. My mom, she's been in the field of social work for years now, and she was like, absolutely not. I'm not signing any paper for you to be a part of that program. And it was like the cool thing to do. Like, all my friends were like, hey girl, you going to the, the DARE party, whatever. My mom was like, if you don't bring your behind home.
There's an initiative, right? So that there was an initiative a couple years ago to have police officers not patrol in cop cars, but actually walk in the neighborhood so that people in the neighborhood would recognize them, right? So it's not like a police officer is here, it's police officer Williams and police officer James, and they're just coming to check on, and then the idea is that they're supposed to interact with their community, right? What happened with it? Why they're not doing it? I don't know. Not that they stopped, it's just they're not pushing for it. I know here in Waterbury, they were going to do it, and then they bought horses. They took our taxpayer dollars and they bought horses so that it would boost morale, that we would see police officers on horses, and I guess we were going to love it. And I'm like, what? I see those horses like maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and I touch them and I pet them, and they're great. But like, they're not doing anything for me.
You know how much a horse costs?
Yes,
like, that literally is exhibit A of the fact that the police are wasting money and resources.
Listen, I pet the horses every time I see them.
Like, that's what I want to know. Where were you when you got the opportunity?
So they come out to the senior center where I work sometimes. Downtown, I'll see them.
Who authorized this purchase?
You talking about?
I don't know who authorized it, but it was obviously a city initiative. Our mayor is a former police officer, so he's like, police, 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 and that's great. But I feel like what happens is that they come up with these ideas and they take them out to like a city council meeting. Nobody shows up and like fights it. So now we have horses, and I'm like, you could have taken that money and put it somewhere else. We have, I think it's like 5 horses, not 1, not 2, 5.
I feel like I would love if when people call 911, dispatch does not automatically send them to the police. I would love to see like if you could describe the situation and dispatch connects you to like I think kind of like Sabrina was saying, they'll connect you to like a local agency or like a social worker, or
we need social workers in the department. Margaret. Put social workers in the department.
Yes.
I always want contract out because I was carrying pens in my bag when I was doing them home visits. So
listen, it's the truth.
You know what? You should be able to like. I feel like, so for example, my mom works for the state, and she used to do mobile crisis, where she would like go out into the community and see people. And I feel like if certain organizations are already doing that, you could just pair them up with a police officer, because police officers are not trained in de-escalation tactics for most situations. The only thing I can think of that they're trained to do is maybe a violent situation. And even then, 6 months of training does not teach you how to handle a violent situation. So I just feel like if they could be paired up with somebody who has that training, or maybe they go under that training themselves, that would probably be much better. I think, I don't remember what state, it might have been Ohio, that already has a program. It's called like Cahoots, where like they don't necessarily call the police, they'll call like someone else, like be it a social worker, be it a community worker, be it like somebody, to come and assess the situation, and then you decide whether or not you need to like bring in law enforcement. Because like, to be honest with you, like police officers are not trained to handle like domestic abuse cases. They're not trained to handle they're not trained to de-escalate. So I don't see why they're responsible for every single 911 call we get, unless, like, honestly, they're not even trained to handle medical situations. So they don't even need to come out for those. Like, I just feel like, and if I could make a suggestion, they should definitely undergo way more training for way longer. I don't know, maybe require people to get degrees, because police officers are not required to get degrees. Yeah, like, come on. Like, I just feel like it doesn't make any sense why you can just do 6 months or less and you get a gun and you're a police officer. Like, what is that?
Like you said, we need social workers. The fact is that the police deal with sex trafficking. They don't know what to do with those women besides throw them in jail. They deal with homeless people. They don't know anything to do but to throw them in jail, and that's not the solution. And I don't think
they don't even know where to put homeless people, which is sad.
I am very big. I've been doing research for years on juvenile justice. I actually do want to work with that population when I finish school, hopefully, maybe one day. But like, even when it comes to like truancy, even when it comes to like issues, when you look at like the school to prison pipeline, for instance, you have like a lot of these young people that have, you know, behavioral issues or like, you know, disabilities where they may not be able to pay attention, or they do find themselves in trouble, or back at home, you know, they're coming from like environments that are toxic. A kid not, you know, getting a meal until actually, you know, go to school, you know, and they're because, or suspend them, or, you know, expel them. And that's an issue. That's like a bigger issue. But I'm very like heavy when it comes to, I'm very passionate about the children. But juvenile justice too, like, personally speaking, I don't think, first of all, we need to abolish prisons. But when it comes to these young people, they need therapy. They need help. A lot of what's going on in our community, they just need some services and some help. Stop throwing these people in jail. That's not it.
That's not it.
And I feel like a lot of these white police officers, I expect a lot from Black police officers. I've seen some that haven't done, you know, due diligence, but a lot of these police officers, that's one of the things that I don't think they'll ever understand. Like, they come from a very black and white lens of, okay, I'm just going to protect this person, or I'm going to protect this community, quote unquote, send this person to jail. But like, there are deep-rooted issues, I feel, a lot of the time. And I don't know, like, that's like kind of my sentiments when it comes to certain issues I feel that have come up a lot. Because especially in the inner city, like, they just need services. They need help. They don't need to be handcuffed and sent to prison. And then what? That's how you get all that recidivism and all that stuff going on.
I was going to say the same thing, yeah.
You just send them back into the same environment that they really need help in. That's it. Defund the police. Reallocate and put some money into services that can help these families in need. I mean, the poverty line, for crying out loud. We got so many people that just need help. I don't want to talk too much, but I'm just.
Well, I want you to answer something.
I'm so passionate about that. They just need some help, especially our Black community. That's why I'm so passionate about social work. They need help. A lot of us need some help. That's it.
You mentioned abolishing prisons. Can you talk a little bit more about that, or any of you guys? And I've read a couple different things, and I also watched that Ava DuVernay documentary, The 13th Amendment, and that's kind of when I learned more about abolishing prisons and kind of how it's slavery, right? So they force these men and women to work for like 5 cents an hour, and they're living in horrible conditions. It's cruel and unjust. Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about abolishing prison systems. Like, I think people think it's like, oh, we won't have any place to physically hold people when they commit heinous crimes, right? And that's what they're stuck on. But could you talk a little bit about what it would look like, or what you know of what abolishing prisons would look like?
Abolishing prisons, there's a lot of information out there. And she had written a book about like abolishing prisons and like, you know, the justice reform and how much we need reform within the system. A lot of people don't agree, as a lot of people come from the perspective of, oh, you should suffer the consequence for whatever, whatever crime done, needing help. In my own perspective, and maybe you guys may disagree, I just think that not all people aren't bad. That's just what I think. I don't think people are bad. I think people do bad things, and that's a result of a deep-rooted issue that needs to be unpacked.
Right now I was working with a man. We're trying to find housing, and he was in prison. He had a felony. I didn't ask him what it was for, but he did like about 6 years in his 40s. Now he's 65, and he can't qualify for low-income subsidy because he has a felony on his record. And they're like, well, you might be a danger to everybody else. And he's like, I'm 65. Like, I'm not gonna do anything. I've reformed myself, and I feel like I'm still being punished. And I think that's something people don't forget. Like, if we're talking about prison as a way to pay for your crimes once you get out, people are like, oh, you're still a bad person. That's ridiculous. They have to still put on certain applications that they have a felony. It's not like a sexual offender or somebody who has, committed sexual crimes against children. We're talking about anybody. Like, if you were shoplifting because you needed to and it became a felony, it's on your record for the rest of your life. You can't vote to find people or vote for people to put your rights ahead of what everyone else is thinking. You can't even vote to fix the system, which is ridiculous. You can't even do anything internally or externally to change your situation, and that's why so many people go back into prisons, because they have no other option.
The recidivism. Prisons, all they do is just cage people up and then send them back out.
And wait for you to return.
The PO said something about he shouldn't be driving.
No.
Which I don't understand, because he said he was allowed to drive.
He's on parole. He belongs to us, okay? He belongs to New York State.
Serve your time, quote unquote. It's not remedying the issue. The person that committed the crime, you send them into a cell and then they go back out into the community. But then what? What services were put in place? Were we working with them? Is there? Yeah. And I actually did an expo not too long ago, a juvenile justice expo, talking about having a panel of experts that talked about like the need for mental health within these detention centers. I mean, if we're going to put them in the centers, let's get them some help. Let's get them some assistance to put them in the right place. Because it's just going to happen like this. It's just going to go back and forth.
So a lot of these prisons are privately owned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
they're workers.
Yeah. I feel like the system, not I feel like, it's literally true. This is not just me suspecting. I feel like our criminal justice system as an entity, as an institution, is literally just another form. It's just modern day slavery. And I think they just got smarter about making it happen. They just got smarter about enslaving and entrapping the Black community. They literally just got more insidious with it. That's all it is. Like, you basically set it up from childhood. It's, the school to prison pipeline, you set it up from childhood that this amount of black and brown bodies are going to make their way into the prison system. And we're going to make it so that when they get there will be no help, little to no assistance, so that they'll just keep coming back for that free labor. Because not only are these prisons privately owned and privately funded, a lot of these companies that people are buying things from are literally getting their things made by prisoners.
Yeah.
They just don't want to pay anybody. They don't want to pay anybody.
By the list, when I saw it, I was like, what?
Yeah.
It's actually disturbing. Like,
yes.
Like, I think last time, you had said, Bella had said Neutrogena is one of them. Like,
yeah.
I didn't even know Neutrogena was on that list, and thank God I don't buy their products anymore. But like, it is actually disturbing how many companies pay for prisoners, and they're paying basically nothing for prisoners to make their products for people to buy, and people don't even know about it. And like, to me, it's deeply it's deeply disturbing. The like, even the term criminal, because honestly speaking, in this country, when you think of a criminal, they've criminalized Blackness. You know what I'm saying? Like, basically people are equating this terminology with like being Black. And it's despicable. It's disgusting. And we see it, like, literally. The reason why, and I feel like this is the reason why things are so bad right now. It's not like this hasn't been happening for the longest time. Even still to this day, I just watched the news yesterday, and they showed a video of this Black woman being assaulted by a police officer. And this is like a new story. And she's alive, thank God. But like, how often does that happen? But the police were saying that she was the aggressor, even though if you watch the video, she literally is not. Like, she was basically tackled by a cop, but she's the aggressor. It's bigger than just like, I mean, don't get me wrong, people are literally dying. But if you're not dying, you might be struggling to get an education. If you're not dying, you might be struggling to eat. If you're not dying, you might be struggling to be covered by health insurance. Like, it's a lot of struggles.
Yeah.
I'm in a Zoom call. It's a lot of struggles going on in this in this country right now, and it's all happening at the same time. And don't think for a second that this is not all happening at the same time to purposefully keep Black and brown communities down and to keep us out.
Yeah.
To keep us out of the conversation. Do you think it's by accident that when you have a criminal record you can't vote? Do you think that's by accident? They don't want you to vote. They don't want your vote.
Yeah.
They don't want your opinion. They will do anything to prevent communities of color from being able to vote. Did you see, like, a few weeks ago where I think it was in Kentucky, where they were like they were literally closing voting centers that people could not vote? They do not want people to vote. They don't want our opinion. This is
I know. I feel you, bro.
I'm even like still disappointed only because, like, so we've had a lot of law changes recently, right? We haven't had too many changes in officials, but we had a lot of law changes, and it just makes me think, like, why now? Because it's been happening, so it's just more publicized. But I feel like we as Black people, after the civil rights movement, we like took a nap, thinking things were better. Maybe they've been a little bit better, but I feel like we could have come so much further if we didn't take a break.
But I think they were working on stopping that.
Years and decades of struggling to get whatever rights that we feel like that are owed to us. But yeah, I thought about that recently. I was like, I we took a break.
Actually,
I feel like
that's
they
a good point, Natalie.
Huh? I think. Oh, sorry. I said I think they've been working on that even after the civil rights movement. I feel like I learned recently how the FBI was sending letters to Martin Luther King Jr. talking about how they were going to expose him and set up his death as a suicide. So I think they just kind of were like, we're going to let this moment pass, but we're going to get you. Like, I feel like it was like a chess game, and it's like every time you think you're taking a step forward in the right direction, they're like, no, we're going block. So I feel like
let's be clear, it wasn't just MLK that the FBI killed.
Oh, no.
Every single major Black, literally every single major
day.
Black leader that we had in this movement is dead. People who were protesting against, who was it? Michael Brown.
Fascinating.
Oh, most of the people who came out and were speaking about Michael Brown are dead. Please look it up. Like, this is a systematic oppression of Black and brown people. Even Sandra Bland was killed for many reasons, but Sandra Bland had a video before she died, and she said, if I'm ever in police custody and I end up dead, please know that I did not commit suicide. And isn't it ironic that they tried to say that she killed herself in jail?
Yeah. It's just even when we fight for ourselves.
This is chess, not checkers. Like, this is not a game. And like, yeah, we're getting a lot of policy changes right now because, COVID had everybody at home twiddling their thumbs. Nobody was doing anything. So you can't pretend you can't see this now. There's only a few things you can see since you're not outside.
You cannot pretend you.
But they're not even giving us what we really want. You know what I'm saying? They're doing a lot of things. People are changing.
That's what's making me mad.
Texas realtors are out here changing the term master bedroom because it's tied to Did nobody ask you to do that?
They're doing everything but what we asked for.
You know what we want? Reparations.
They're doing everything but what we asked for. They're
everything but what we want. Everything but what we're asking for.
I feel like they're mocking us. They think this is a game. They're playing with us.
It's a game. And now, of course, now they want to bring basketball back. They want to bring football back. They want to bring all of the distractions
Did you guys
back.
hear about the NFL not too long ago? I saw like a post.
The anthem?
About like the first week of every like 7 weeks.
No one
or something,
cares.
you know,
I'm
the
just
Black
like,
National
what?
Anthem. The comments
Nobody cares.
there was such
Give Kaepernick a
uproar.
job. Give Kaepernick a job. Give Kaepernick a job. I don't want to hear nothing until Kaepernick gets a job. Period.
Yes.
I don't want to hear
We
it.
didn't ask y'all for the Black National Anthem.
We didn't ask you for the national anthem. Matter of
They
fact,
keep doing all these things we did not ask for, and it's making me mad.
it's actually disturbing what white people in power will do to try to quiet the Black or placate the Black community. And it's like, and I really, really don't want people to get distracted at this time because we're making progress. The thing is, there's so many distractions. I don't want us to get distracted. We got to stay focused and we got to stay consistent and we got to vote. People need to vote. Okay? Vote. Like your life depend on it because it does. Like it literally does. Take your grandma, take your cousin, take your auntie, take your sister. Everybody needs to vote. If you're over 18, vote.
People need to be more involved in their community meetings. Like those board of education meetings are important.
Please.
Those city council meetings are just as important.
Please,
So
like
those little things, like people, even when we're voting and they put those little questions on the ballots, half those people don't know what those ballot questions are. And they're just checking yes. They don't even know what they're checking yes to.
Yes. Please pay attention to your city and state budgets because that crap is supposed to be public information, which is why they have city council meetings, they have town hall meetings. Like people have we cannot continue to let these white people control us. Okay, like we cannot do it. They're trying to make the District of Columbia, where I live right now, they're trying to make it a state, and it's being blocked. You know, did you know that? Like they literally don't even want to make it a state, which DC basically is a state. But you know why? Because they don't want because it would affect the electoral college. Gerrymandering is real, y'all. It would affect the electoral college, and they do not want a predominantly Black entity or like territory. They don't, because it's predominantly Black. They do not want us to vote and affect the election. They don't want it. We vote, but we don't really affect the election right now. If we were considered a state, we get a senator. You know what I'm saying? We get, you know, I think 2 people, like 2 representatives or something like that. We would be represented in Congress and we would be represented in the general elections and things like that. They don't want it. Okay? This is not a game. This is literally, we're in it for the long haul because the white people in power do not want to see Black people rise to their full potential. They don't want to see that. And like, I'm not saying every single white person believes that, but like the white people in Congress, the people who are on their knees wearing kente cloth, there's a lot going on, okay?
I don't even want to.
Mind you, the Black Caucus signed off on that. You guys need to check your representatives. Check your representatives because they're not even representing you well. Kente cloth is Ghanaian. How many of us are from Ghana?
Whose idea was this? Please tell me. Confess, please. Whose idea was this? We didn't ask for that.
We didn't ask. Matter of fact, I really respect Speaker Pelosi, but she couldn't even get up off her knees. She didn't help. And that was God's way of telling you that you shouldn't have done this. We didn't ask for it. We didn't ask for that.
I feel like now there's like a wave of the false activism of like what to look like if you don't want to be a racist. And I feel like that's kind of what it's coming down to. It's like, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, so you can't say I'm a racist. Well, maybe if I, wear kente cloth and, put my fists up and I tell you guys that, you're my brothers and my sisters, then you guys are going to be okay with that.
It is so disturbing to me. Like, don't get me wrong, because I really think it is disturbing to me that people feel like it's appropriate to wear cloth from Africa, considering that the enslavement of Black people literally ripped people from their roots. People don't know where they're from. People cannot tie themselves back to where they're from. And you're out here wearing kente cloth. Are you okay? Are you all right? That's literally a slap in the face of every Black American in this country.
I have a question for them. I want to know, like, and it's not to say that if they did it this way,
and that's assuming everyone's from Africa, because some people are from the Caribbean. Like, we're not even. What's going on?
The diaspora best. I want to know where they got the kente cloth. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm worried. Like, it would make it even worse if, like, it was like made in China, and like, you know what I mean? Like, because at least I could somehow, like, in my mind, it's like. No, like, listen, if somehow in their mind they're like, oh, we're going to support Black-owned businesses, and I'm going to go to this actual store with their cloth is, you know what I'm talking about? Like, because, like, I feel like it just, they
I don't want to go into logistics. I don't want to know that. I don't want to know none of that.
I don't want to know, because then I'm going to be even more upset. I don't want to know.
I don't want to know how they got the cloth. I don't know. I don't want to know how they got the cloth. I don't know.
And that's what I think about. I feel like like, in my mind, they're like, Nancy Pelosi was like on Amazon, like, oh, this is like a nice little cloth. Let me order it for 2-day shipping. And it showed up at our house.
Who co-signed that?
That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know.
Y'all could have just got, you
colored people. And you guys thought, yeah.
They could have just took you didn't need the kente, okay? You could have just done it.
Thank you. I need
Before I go to my hair
block out my name last time. I'm like, my full name is there. I was like, how that happen? I'm over here taking my job off my profile so can't nobody find me.
Y'all are funny.
It's really scary out here.
Listen to this video and I lose my job.
I don't think we said anything. I will edit this, but I don't think anything we've ever said here in this chat this whole hour. I mean, if we did, they would have a lawsuit on their hands, okay? Like, we are American citizens. We are allowed to say what we want, how we want. We have not defamed anybody. We have not called anybody outside their name. We have not told any lies. That's first and foremost. Everything we have said has been truthful, and it's our experience. So try to fire me today. I want to see it. That in itself, the fact that you have to think about your job before you say something about how you're being oppressed.
Be clear. Only we people of color have to think about our jobs. White people, they're good. They don't got to worry about these things. They're good.
That's true.
They're solid. My coworkers, they say a lot of things that I would never dream to say in the work environment, and they're fine. Their jobs are secure.
Like remember the story you told me, Paola? And I was just like, they said what?
Oh, so I'm gonna try to tell this real quick. I had a lady stop at my cubicle, and she'd always complimented me. And that day, she was like, "You're so cute. You're so cute. You're so pretty." She's like, "You're just a cute little monkey." And she's a white woman, and she said this out loud.
What?
Sabrina, like, when I tell you the words came out her mouth, I was just like, I felt like I was like in like a time warp. I was like, run that back, let me flip it down, reverse it. Like, you said what?
I didn't know you lying.
Sabrina, I'm not
lying.
No, she told me. I was just like, she said what? And then when she told me who it was, I was like, honestly, I'm not really surprised.
She was like, it says less than a minute. She told me real quick because she knew what she had said. She goes, I call my kids that, like a term of endearment.
She wouldn't have said that if she knew what she said. She would have never added that if she knew what she said wasn't wrong.
I was about to say, she wouldn't have said that. She knew it was
wrong. Yeah.
That is